I'm sitting here in Cumbio Polytunnel, which is the education polytunnel, part of the Jordan Community Farm, with Kevin Dudley, who was a farmer in with the community farm, and really is the mind behind the community seed bank, which we have established here within the polytunnel. And so I want to ask you, Kevin, a few questions about the community seed bank. I think I just have here, you said that community seed banks are locally governed and manage seeds for local use, and they're designed to conserve, restore, vitalize, strengthen, and improve plant genetic resources for local farms and gardens. So, how do we do this? Can you say something first about the first part of it, about the importance of saving our own seeds?
Well, what has happened for thousands of years, they reckon for over 12,000 years, we were agricultural and there were no seed catalogues. We had the seeds that we had and they were fairly loose in how they grew, as in they were heterozygous or all kind of slightly different. Whereas what we get now is varieties that are homogeneous, which means that they all look the same and they all want to come out the same. This doesn't allow us enough genetic material or characteristics in our modern varieties for anything that's going to change, or even for our local soil type and our needs and our weather. So the idea is that we open all of this back up again, and we have started crossing varieties so that we get some diversity that we can then choose out of that works well here. Also, growing your own seeds. We now know, everybody almost knows about the gut biome, where, you know, we each have our own individual biology in our gut. Well, it's the same with seeds. The soil that the seeds grow in create a seed biome. So those seeds are already in tune to grow in this soil, with the biology in this soil, rather than importing them from halfway across the world or even from another county in Ireland. Because we want to grow crops that are specific to where we are, to where we grow our food. And it came out of working for Irish Seed Savers and other seed groups around the planet. This idea that once upon a time, or well, for thousands and thousands of years, farmers lived with the crops that they grew, and they decided which direction that these crops should go, whereas now everybody buys them in as an input from a seed company who we don't know who they are, and in most cases nobody saves their own seed any longer. So the whole idea is to kind of get people back into growing their own food and then getting them into the seed saving part of it. So we've been told that about 97% of all of the varieties of vegetables we had before the year 2000 have disappeared. Well, that's mainly because we haven't been involved, us, the rest of humanity, other than the seed breeders. And so this is why community is really important as well, because it's too hard for one farmer to be working on all of these projects with the multiple of vegetable crops that we grow here on the farm at Jordan. So the community is involved and everybody helps with that, and you just get more eyes, more ears, and more brains thinking. So if we could wake everybody up, we could revitalize the food systems that we're living in.
And I've often heard you talk about the sacredness of seeds.
Yeah, well, it just appears to me that nothing is sacred anymore. We can buy anything if you've got enough money, but like we treat seeds here as being sacred, that we don't own the seeds. So this is why once a year in early spring we have a seed share, where we share our community shares our seeds out into our community, but into other communities as well, and then other communities bring their seeds and share them with us. So yeah, to be sacred, something has to be really integral and important to the existence of something, and I can't think of anything more important than seeds, really.
So it's not just about saving money, which we do by saving our own seeds.
Well, yeah, but not only that, we have seeds already here now that you can't buy anywhere. So the clock onion is a landrace variety we've been creating for the last 10 years, breeding more and more different varieties into it, just so that we get loads of genetic characteristics within our crops that we're growing.
Yeah. So you've touched on it there about increasing our plant genetic resources. Is there anything else you want to say around that? Because it seems very different to the directives coming from the EU, or am I wrong, around is it the dust directive?
Yeah, we have a directive called it's called the DUS law, but DUS stands for DUS, which is distinct, uniform, and stable. So every variety, and you have to pay for this to go onto European and national registers. So it's a big outlay of money, and everything has to be how nothing else in nature is. If when you look into nature, there is nothing. Even you look into humans, and apparently we're a pretty inbred species. The diversity in us alone is massive. Whereas if you look into seeds in a supermarket, lettuces in a supermarket, all of the lettuces look the same. It's not good because we don't know the future. We don't know what's going to happen, what's going to change. And by keeping the ability of our plants to change with each year that they're exposed to the year, we have a more living kind of seed collection we have here now.
So we increase the plant genetic resource by, you talk about crossing.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, it's what industry does, but when they cross, they have really inbred lines that they cross, and then they cross them together to make an F1. And that's what the industry is kind of doing by pushing out open pollinated seeds, so they take control of the marketplace. But what we do is we'll look at onions. What onions can grow in Ireland? What are people growing in Ireland? Where can we get the seeds from? And then how well they grow here. And if they grow well here, then we cross them into our clock onion, which is made up of loads of different onions, including the Bown onion, which is an old Irish variety, and some Norwegian varieties. And we know it's growing. The clock onion is growing in at least 3 places in Ireland and 1 in the UK. So they'll all take on their own characteristics of where they're being grown.
So we're moving towards landrace varieties then, or going back.
Yeah, in a way, because like when we had land races, it's only about over 200 years that the agricultural system we're in now has existed. For the 12 to 16,000 years before that, like I said, we had landrace varieties. That's what we've had through time. And one of the ones we have in this group of islands here off of Europe is the bare barley, which grows up in the Orkneys, and that's been growing for 12,000 years and would have been in Ireland as well. So it just goes to show you how long these constantly slightly changing varieties are, because if it can grow up in the Orkneys, it can grow almost anywhere.
Yeah. So are there other community seed banks in Ireland?
I think there's one up near what's his name on Shannon? There's I think one up in Ross Common up there, and I don't really know about anywhere else. I think there are other ones around, but it's mainly left up to Irish Seed Savers.
Yeah.
So, but Irish Seed Savers is an organisation that's meant to be utilising and collecting it, but it can't turn everything over.
Yeah.
If you've got 600 varieties of seeds in your fridges, you can't grow them out every year.
Yeah.
So every year you can't grow them out. They're not exposed to the growing conditions, which then changes the seed that you save at the end of the year. So with us, we intend to keep researching because it's an integral part of a farm, is to have an experimental research part to it, so we can see which crops. So when we started, the reason we did the clock onion originally was it was a bit of a hard work to get them to work here, but we realized after 4 years that the seed that we created was better than any seed we could buy, and that now we grow about 4 tons of the onions every year, and they keep right the way through. We're still just finishing off the last of them now in April. And so this is what we're trying to look at, the benefits of different crops that you might not be able to get hold of through the normal seed catalogues.
So we're very lucky here in being attached to the farm to be able to have
Yeah.
the amount of
Yeah, but it goes back both ways. So that the farm is busy being a farm and producing for the members twice a week. It does some experimental stuff there, but also here with our group, which is what I'm trying to say is the community. So it's a community seed bank, so that we in the community are actually involved and becoming. The more you do something, the more aware you become of it.
Absolutely.
So the whole idea is to get into it and start doing something about it, because there's lots of people been talking about this for decades now, and nothing is being done. So we don't need people to tell us that they're scientists. We're all scientists. Anybody who can think of a question or ask a question is a scientist. So this is what we're trying to encourage in our local population, is to ask questions as to why that lettuce is like that and why is that lettuce like that, and then maybe we can get into the science of it more.
Yeah. Okay, we had the community seed bank here yesterday and a growing club attached to it, and so there's a lot of stuff going on here. Do you want to just speak a little to what's growing?
Yeah, well, we kind of start off with lettuces.
Yeah.
And so they're the first ones. So we have some over there, and some which were just potted up the last week, and they're all from our own seed. And then onions. So we don't need to grow onions because the farm grows, like I said, 4 ton of onions. So what we're looking at is potato onions, which are they're like a shallot. They split. So if we do get a year that we can't save onion seed because it's too wet or there's disease, we'll still have onions because we can just put these guys back in and they'll grow and split and create more onions. And then we have the fistulosums, which are bunching onions as well. And then we have tomatoes coming on for the tomato sale. And I think here we have about 10 different varieties of tomatoes, going from large beefsteak tomatoes to cherry type tomatoes, and this year down to currant tomatoes as well, which are more like the wild tomatoes, so they have more nutrition in them, and and they're easier to handle because you don't have to tie them up. They're determinate, and they'll just.
And we have some flowers here as well, because it's important to have some flowers in the midst of the.
It is, yeah. We tend to look at food because we're looking for food, but a lot of the food crops that we grow, they don't actually make flower, because like a cabbage, we'd grow a cabbage and then we'd cut it and eat it before the next year it would go to flower, which is another good thing about seed saving, is because you need flowers for seed saving. So when you've got flowers, then you've got insects, and if we didn't have the insects, then we would be banjaxed, because we'd all have to go around with black and yellow one pieces on and pollinate them all ourselves.
That's fine. Just one last thing. We are hoping to have a place for our seeds that people can come regularly and collect their seeds. But for the moment, we're just of a Wednesday if people want to come to pick their seeds, and there's some variety there. But we have some more that we have somewhere else, where we're hoping to have a storage facility where it's much more accessible to people.
It takes a lot to organise everything, all of the different varieties that we have at the moment and how we're putting them together. And we have an old fridge that we keep them in. But it's just getting more and more people, and we can self-organise more then, rather than somebody telling you that you should be doing something. And also what it does is it's a safe space to fail. So that's how we learn as human beings. We learn by doing something wrong, and so here there's plenty of chance to do things wrong, but you don't get punished for doing things wrong here.
Okay, and that's a really good way to end. Thank you.
Okay.